All right. Thank you all for joining today's webinar. We'll give a few seconds for some additional people to join, and we'll get started in a few seconds here. For those of you now joining, this is the InsurTech New York's Agentic AI Jargon or Gamechanger webinar, and we are hosting this with Lazarus AI. We'll be participating in our panel a little bit. So let's get started here. Before we get to the actual panel, I want to share a little bit about our organization for those of you who are not familiar with us. We are a InsurTech New York, and we run different types of programs to connect those in the ecosystem. We run different startup programs, such as the one you see in the middle here, early stage competition, InsurTech Match Program, MJ Lab. We also host a number of different education networking events, including the spring conference, which we'll talk about a little bit, also some community events. We also do a good amount of research as well. And we also invest. So if you're a early stage, seed stage company, please let us know. We might be interested in working with you from an investment perspective. Just a few different things that we do in a given year. These are some of the activities we have planned for now and 12 months from now. We'll talk about some of the webinars, upcoming webinars. We also have a distribution event in November. So if you're interested in distribution, please, hopefully you can come to our event. All of these events, most of them are on our website, so you can kind of check them out. And then we also host different accelerator programs, as I mentioned, and we have some data here as well. Want to highlight a few upcoming webinars. So we have another webinar coming up next month. Typically, you basically do like monthly to bi-monthly webinars. And the next event is going to be in September 11th on augmented underwriting. We'll be partnering with Verisk on this one. So that should be a good one. There's, underwriters are not going in. It's probably one of the most important jobs in an insurance company. And there's a lot of technology and especially AI, which we'll probably talk about later today, that can help the underwriting process. And then in November, we're going to be co-hosting with InsurTech software company where they will let us know how to build a very resilient, flexible, modern insurance system using no-code, low-code cloud. So all these webinars, we almost always provide them for free. So hopefully you guys can sign up and participate. Final announcement here, our spring conference is going to be, I think, our 7th time doing this next year. March 30, 31st is 2-day conference. We have content for both life and health and PNC, and it should be a really good one. It's going to be on human side of insurance. Again, there's a lot of technology, AI, things out there that can help the insurance industry, but there's always almost a human side to all of these things. So we want to kind of talk about that and highlight that not everything is technology and can be done by technology, and there's always humans to it. Right now is perfect time to buy the ticket. Early bird special, 40% off on the expire end of the month. The price will continue to go up, so this is the best time to buy. So please go to our website and purchase the ticket this March 31st next year in New York. So with that, I'm going to now hand it off to the panel. Our moderator is going to be David Grit, one of our co-founders in InsurTech New York. I'm going to hand it off to you now so you can introduce the panel and kickstart this panel. Off to you, David.
Thanks, Tony, and welcome to our webinar today on Agentic AI, Jargon, or Gamechanger. And I do have to say, this is one of the topics that seems to be in the zeitgeist. And I sure hope it's not one of those sayings where, if someone asks you about it in the gym locker room, then we're in a bubble. I haven't quite gotten asked in the gym locker room about Agentic yet, so I think we still have some room to go. But I'm going to introduce our 3 esteemed panelists today, and then we're going to start our discussion. So first, I have our co-host John from Lazarus AI. He's the VP of Insurance Solutions. He's been an executive in the industry for over 20 years as a CIO, CISO, CTO, and at the last couple of years, he's been at Lazarus, where he's been working at the intersection of AI and insurance every day. And then we have Kartik. who's the VP and global CIO of LIMRA and LOMA. And, beyond his core responsibilities, he also leads the AI industry group of 140 businesses and technology executives across the industry. And certainly, not last, but our carrier representative is Mindy, who's the head of AI and analytics at Mutual of Omaha. And she's working on shaping the future of insurance using generative AI and building solutions that reimagine customer experience, new markets, and unlock operational efficiencies, which are all topics we're going to be going into. So, before we dig into some of the deeper technical topics, I thought, this is, even though, it's a zeitgeist type of thing, it's a new topic for many. So maybe, John, you could help us to define agentic AI and how does that differ from generative AI, from chatbots, or from rules-based automation?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dave. And I certainly understand the confusion. So, in the ancient days of AI, like 2 years ago, suddenly everybody turned into an AI company, every vendor. Magically, even if they were doing COBOL solutions the year before, suddenly is AI. And it feels like in 2025, the same thing has happened. Now everybody's an agentic AI company, and decision makers are confused. So, here's how I think about it. I actually start with non-agentic AI to put a pillar into the ground. Non-agentic or task-based or use case AI lets us solve problems like go interpret this handwriting, go summarize this document, go extract these things, go take these service transcripts and give me ideas on improving the quality of service. Those are all things that insurance companies are using AI today to add value. Non-agentic, task-based. Agentic AI is another whole level, more like process-based. How do we execute an entire complex process to deliver a business outcome? A quick example of that might be an auto claim. Put in a whole bunch of information into an agentic solution and come back with a recommendation. Should we pay this claim or not? Is there any evidence of fraud or anomalous inputs? And oh, by the way, document every single step that the AI is going through because we're in a heavily regulated industry. That's executing an entire process with AI, and that is agentic. And as I said at the onset, there's a lot of confusion about this. I would suggest to any decision maker, if you're talking to a quote unquote agentic AI company and they're talking about hundreds of thousands of line of Java code, I would suspect it's not agentic AI. I would suspect it's something else. It's old wine in old bottles with a new label. Agentic AI has to bring some intelligence or knowledge and value to the process. So, like, we will commonly, when we're doing things, maybe have an objective of 60, 80, 100 lines, not thousands of lines of code. So, also, I'll offer to anyone on this call, I have a very, very simplistic visual that if you contact me afterwards, just send me a note, I'll send it to you. I'm not saying it will work in every use case that you have, but it's the way I think about it. And I will tell you the way that simple visual works. There's about 95% of people running around today saying we're doing agentic AI that cannot meet those definitions. So, to answer your question, David, that's how I think about it. Set a stake in the ground, what's non agentic, task, use case, then move on to process based.
Yeah, so I think I need to borrow a little bit of your vernacular. So I'm gonna take that, old wine, old bottle, new label, and use that as my magnifying glass when I look at the next solutions. But I think, at least my read out of that is if you look at kind of two old components, right? The robotic process automation that goes end to end in a process, and then, an agentic solution is really building on top of that by using AI. And if it's a company that has tons of rules, like thousands of lines of code, probably not there. It should be something that's actually doing some inference and learning and processing on the fly. So, you know, sitting here, I'm sure many of you are in the seats where you have to ultimately decide as an insurer, are we even ready for agentic AI solutions? or do we need to do some homework before that? So maybe, Mindy, you could share your perspective on that. It's like, what are some prerequisites that people listening are like, hey, my board says I got to do it. Like, how do I even know if I'm ready to be involved or implement an agentic solution?
Yeah, of course, David. So for insurers, there's AI governance that we all understand and know. So keeping up with the evolving regulations around the use of AI insurance is a key aspect of it. Also considering what is acceptable use of data in your particular domain or context is also a key of part of it. But when I think about really unlocking the power of agents, assuming you've gotten through all of that, the biggest prerequisite for insurers to be ready for agentic solutions is really operational data access. Gen AI opens the door for us to reimagine the customer experience, empower associates, really drive industry differentiation through these intelligent solutions that John was talking about. But across our industry, a lot of the data that's needed to power these solutions still lives in legacy systems that were designed for humans to access, not for agents to access. So humans can see this data through a user interface, but agents need to be able to programmatically access the same data that associates can see in order to help us. Unlocking this data is probably the most important enabler to realizing the full transformative power of Gen AI in our industry.
Yeah, no, I can definitely appreciate that. I mean, if your stuff is sitting in an old COBOL or AS400 system, it doesn't seem like you can just sit an agentic AI solution on top. That's really designed for someone who's really good at reading through the green screens.
Exactly.
So, Kartik, I think you have the broadest perspective from the life and health side. You know, what are you hearing from boards or business units about how they perceive agentic AI, what they think it can do for their business, and what they think it cannot do in the next, 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, thank you, David. First off, this is such a great panel. I'm always happy to share a stage, virtual or otherwise, with John and with Mindy. I love your response with legacy systems and unlocking the data assets that reside within it. To David, people haven't asked you about AI agents and agentic AI in the gym yet. So be prepared for that. It's imminent. But a couple of things on the agentic AI and AI agents front. So by and large, our industry, we're still trying to figure out what sustainable success with respect to AI looks like, right? So AI in our industry is not new. We've been practicing traditional AI, the OG AI, machine learning primarily, in things like accelerated automated underwriting for a good long while, right? So LIMRA research in 2017, less than 50% of carriers surveyed at that point in time had some level of AI and machine learning in underwriting. So we refreshed that benchmark in 2021, published in 2022, and that number jumped to 94%, right? So AI is not novel in the insurance landscape. What is novel is 2023 when ChatGPT, essentially large language models, Gen AI, democratized artificial intelligence by and large for the industry, right? So for the past 16, 18 months, as you mentioned, we represent life annuities and workplace benefit companies, carriers, as well as technology providers, ecosystem partners. With the 140 plus business and technology executives that we have on this crew, we have surfaced rich insights, right? But the base level insight is, I think by and large, the industry is just about where everyone else is, right? Amongst carriers in the carrier space. We're looking at leveraging generative AI internally for operational efficiencies and productivity growth. We continue to be extremely diligent and careful about leveraging AI for anything customer related. That's not a rudimentary chatbot, right? Oh, you forgot your policy number? Here, let me fetch that for you, right? Uh, so that continues to be appropriate and appropriate use of AI. So from an AI agents and agentic AI perspective, I think we have to do a lot of education around the industry. And John and I have been pounding the pavement, right? Trying to elevate the collective knowledge of the industry, where AI agents and what AI agents mean to the industry, and what they will mean in the next 3 to 5 years. And I always start my presentations to senior executives with the most simplistic of analogies, right? So AI agents are good at they're one-hit wonders, right? You give them a specific task, things to do, they will go do it autonomously, independently, learn from their environment, and do that really well, right? Agentic AI is more like an orchestrator, right? Like an orchestration engine to be able to manage all of these disparate AI agents. So the best analogy to think about AI agents would be your car's GPS, right? You have a GPS system that gives you step-by-step directions to get from point A to point B, whereas agentic AI would be a self-driving car, right? An autonomous driving vehicle where you have multiple inputs and it has to make decisions in real time, right? Avoid obstacles, avoid collisions, right? And get to your destination as you go through. So where the industry right now is, David, we're all trying to figure it out. There are some carriers who have been early adopters of AI, per se, right? Gen AI specifically, that are experimenting with AI agents and agentic AI. But I think there's going to be a lot more education that we need to do as an industry on what AI agents and agentic mean to us.
Oh, I really appreciate the positioning there, Kartik, because I was getting a little worried at the beginning that you said everyone's in the same boat, and then you're like, we're using AI, but not we're using the orchestration layer yet. So, I think it's maybe a sigh of relief for many of you that are getting a lot of pressure. It's like the industry has obviously been using machine learning and natural language processing for the last 20 years. But we're all in this together, and I think the big piece that I took from you, Kartik, is like other than kind of trivial solutions for direct to consumer policyholder interactions, most of it is facing internal and helping the carriers with their operations or with triage of different activities. So, the next theme or section I wanted to cover is really, how do you evaluate whether these solutions can provide value? What is the risk of them? And what are some examples of use cases? So maybe, John, you can start us off, again, in this next deep dive is, how do you quantify the return on investment of a agentic solution? And can you give examples of how it might be able to like cut cost or, improve customer experience?
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a huge issue around all aspects of AI. And the decision makers on this webinar are running businesses. They're trying to create value. And we cannot get lost in the excitement around the tech and AI. That reality is we have to create value. I liked your list where you're talking about increasing productivity, increasing customer engagement. To that list, I would add when you're calculating an NPV, a CBA, an ROI, whatever your company uses, I would add job satisfaction to the metrics. Just this morning, I was talking to a tier one carrier and I loved their use case. They were reducing cost, increasing turnaround time, reducing risk, doing all kinds of great things. And as we talked, we agreed it's also increasing job satisfaction of the humans. They're having a better experience now with the AI implementation. So I would absolutely exhort people as they're thinking about CBAs, use AI, whether agentic or otherwise, implementations that you believe are going to increase the job side of the humans, increase retention, or being honest to say if you're implementing a solution and you're concerned it's going to impact job sat negatively and hurt retention, that needs to be part of your CBA. Although I'd say then consider not doing it. One of the other things that's very real to me in 2025, it seems that transformational programs are going on everywhere throughout our industry, as has been true for many years. It almost seems that God on the eighth day said, do a transformation program and have it going on for many, many years because that is happening. I will share with you my direct experience with transformation programs as we did transformational things. And sometimes we did things that really weren't very transformational. You just said that to the board to get funded. To make the financials around AI work, you've got to truly be opening the aperture enough, solving a large enough problem to really drive the CPAs. So here's, and to your point on a proof point, I believe insurers today should be actively engaged in multiple pilots And part of the pilot is proving out the CBA, not doing a science project, but saying if we can make the CBA work, we will move this to production. This is going to create value at our company. So if you're going along and you suddenly realize the CBA is not going to work, I would kill the pilot. So to summarize this, 4 things I would think about financials. Number 1 is think truly transformationally. Open the aperture, solve big problems. 2 is include human support. Human in the loop is going to be part of the most effective AI solutions. Do not assume there's no humans. But on the other hand, don't assume that human intelligence is always 100% accurate either. Number 3, as we said earlier, put job satisfaction in the financial and in the calculations. And 4th, limit science projects. Do pilots that if they work, you move to production and get the value. That's how I think about financials and AI.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing I take out of that is like, if you have a vision and you actually want to make impact, you can't just do a little toy project. You have to actually open the aperture. And, we got a question in, so I don't know if people are watching the Q&A, but I think it's probably worth, having Kartik verbalize it. But essentially the question, the gist of it is, you know, companies are discussing, the workforce implications. So if an agentic AI solution is taking the place of people, does that mean the people that are making the decision are hesitating, or should the people that are making the decision be excited because it means that the employees that they do keep are going to be happier? So, Kartik, would love for you to enlighten the audience on that one.
Yeah, sure thing. So, I actually think about AI as augmented intelligence and not necessarily as artificial intelligence, right? So, the last time we had a business process change of this magnitude at an enterprise level was less than 25 years ago, right? Each and every one of our offices used to have uh, a person walk around with a mail cart and a manila envelope, right, with a little string. You used to scratch off somebody's name, stick your inter-office letter, and send it along. And when email came about less than 25 years ago across America, it was a transformation that impacted the CEO all the way to the college hire, right? The fresh college hire. I think AI writ large, whether it's Gen AI or whether it's traditional AI or even AI agents and agentic AI, is that magnitude of a business process change. So I don't see it as hesitation. I think organizations are still figuring out their AI strategy writ large. They are Gen AI implementations specifically and are playing around with agentic AI. I promise you, if we have this webinar again this time next year, John, Mindy, and I can talk about AI use case, agentic AI use case success stories across the industry. While there are use cases in experimentation today, ideation today, we're just not there yet. So I don't think it's hesitation for task automation or potential for displacement. It's primarily around making sure that it's fit for purpose, right? It's not a sandwich looking for a picnic. You need to have a specific business problem that you're trying to solve with this particular technology.
I really like your analogy on comparing it to email because I just was reading the news that American Online or, oh, just stopped offering,
Yeah.
job. So, it was a great 30 years. I still remember my, AOL email address. I don't even know if it exists anymore, but I know I had one for a long time. So, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like ultimately, it's something that adds to what we have. It doesn't necessarily subtract, but maybe some jobs will go away. There's not going to be the people bringing around the theoretical narrow cart of processes between different, AIs that we have in different departments. So I'm sure there's a lot of translatable analogies when you really dig through it. So, the last piece I want to cover before we kind of go to additional audience questions is the risk side of it. We talked about, the opportunity, we talked about how it'll affect people. But, given that, as John said, these systems have, maybe 80 lines, not 1,000 lines, and they haven't had a person program through all the deterministic branches of that tree. how do you actually build a reliable system that's based off of a foundation that's non-deterministic? So maybe, Mindy, you can take a shot at that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to high stakes enterprise AI applications, we usually combat inaccuracies by having one model check the work of another, having multiple models doing the same work in tandem. Then if they disagree, something is off. Triple redundancy majority vote is a pattern used in a lot of mission critical systems, and it can also be used when building AI applications. All of this to really say, like, non-determinism and hallucinations are not a reason to stop using AI. They are a reason for thoughtful design and for having humans in the loop to protect against machine error. But the thing I find very curious is nobody ever asks me about having machines in the loop to protect against human error, which also happens.
I can really appreciate that, Mindy, about having machines in the loop to protect the humans. And because if you think about, like, the stereotypical driving example, like, are we going to be in 5 or 10 or even 20 years in a spot where, everyone has autonomous vehicles? But if you think about it, most cars have, signals. They have cameras that are alerting you whether you take your eyes off the road, you take your hands off of the wheel, or it seems like that you're borderline asleep. So that is a really valid concept that we really need to think about, is like, are machines equally good at checking us as we are checking them, and kind of reverse that paradigm. So I'm gonna just do one final question, and then I know Mindy has to leave at the top of the hour, and or the half hour, and then we'll leave more audience questions. So we'll go Mindy, Kartik, and John. What are closing words of wisdom on how you can kind of best position your organization to be successful with agentic AI?
Sure. So I think that agentic AI really represents a set of superpowers. Having the best competitive coder in your pocket is a superpower. Like being able to write a first draft of anything within seconds is a superpower. And you can multiply those superpowers throughout claims, underwriting, service, all of the other functions, sales that we do in insurance. The associates and teams that can leverage these superpowers will outperform those who don't. The organizations that can harness these superpowers will have an advantage over those who don't. And the nations, the countries who lead, will definitely have a bigger advantage over those who don't. And this is why there's a global race for AI dominance right now. There's a reason why the White House's AI action plan says winning the AI race is non-negotiable. So on Gen AI, I don't think the narrative is about adoption anymore. It's about acceleration.
Great. Well, thanks, Mindy. Kartik.
Yeah. So, regardless of what flavor of AI, machine learning, vision, robotics, large language models and Gen AI, agentic AI, and AI agents, right? The one thing we all need to remember and keep in mind, the success for implementation of AI is not as much about the technology. It is 100% going to be about the people, right? And specifically about change management. I don't think our industry has seen this much potential for change over the next 5 years that are going to dwarf the past 100 years put together, right? And everybody wants change, but no one wants to change. So the successful organizations are going to be the ones that actually lead with change management and thinking about the people cultural aspect of it. Don't think about being AI first. Think about being people first, and then everything else will follow.
And John.
Yeah, so three thoughts. So number one, start with non-agentic. And that may be strange for a webinar on agentic, but I really think that starting with non-agentic to understand the perils and possibilities is the way to go. But have a vision of the future we're describing, and as Kartik said, will happen quickly around process. Number two, understand some really boring things we didn't get into, like authentication, authorization, agency, naming conventions are going to become really, really important. I understand some insurance companies may say, we've got that. We spent millions in tools and technology on that. But agentic AI will stress that framework even more than humans will. And number three, a plea for all industries, please don't use IVR implementations in service. I would actually argue that it's the anti-pattern for making choices about when to use AI. If a human really wants to connect with a human, let's use the productivity gains from AI to get a human to a human. And if people want a technology solution, let's make it very supportive and take advantage. I'll leave you all with one final thought. The winners in the age of AI will be those that understand people the best, not AI the best. So that's how I would leave that, David.
Awesome. Well, John, I really appreciate you ending the note on the human side because, as Tony mentioned, our spring conference, which I'm sure you'll be at, is on on the human side of insurance. So the official kind of questioning part is done, but we do have time for audience questions. I know John and Kartik have offered to stay on for another 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to go into some of the audience questions, but if you want to ask a question, there is a Q&A button, and you can just, go through and add it. So maybe, Kartik, if you got to run, I'll get you one question, and then we'll keep John for the remainder. So that question is, how can AI be integrated into life expectancy analysis for life insurance policies to improve prediction accuracy and reduce reliance on traditional manual underwriting?
Yeah, so one of the things that I would recommend doing, Ariel, so that's a really good question. The first off, it's not about technology for technology's sake, right? Where I ended my previous comments. What we have done with our AI industry group is build a framework, a rubric for organizations to go across the value chain, generically look at jobs, right? To underwriter, actuary, claim center person, crack open each job, outline all of the tasks that are underneath each job, and decipher which ones of them are automatable, right? And what is the risk and reward of automating individual tasks, and then what that does to a an underwriter role, an actuarial role, right? How can you redirect the 5, 10, 20% of the capacity that you were open up? I will also say by virtue of freeing up capacity, right? I mean, think about what we're trying to do here. The winners in the age of AI are going to be those who not only understand the implementation of AI, but those who have domain knowledge, right? So, we're a global nonprofit that's been around for LIMRA's been around for 110 years, LOMA's been around for 103 years. So between us, we've got over 200 years of in totality of the association. We've got about 200 years of industry knowledge, right? Build domain knowledge, take a LOMA education course, right? 281, 291, the base level designations, become a student of the game. So how can organizations integrate AI, not just in underwriting, but in across the value chain? Understand which tasks are worth automating, and then figure out if they're worth automating by AI. It might be something else, right? It might be an API. It doesn't have to be AI. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I think the deeper you can understand all the tasks, the better you can give it to a machine that's going to orchestrate it for you.
Yeah, indeed. All right, I need to take your leave, but John is way smarter than I am, way smarter than I am, right? So I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to handle. And John's an integral part of our AI industry group as well, so he can represent that side as well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kartik. Appreciate it.
So, John, we'll probably pick three questions and then wrap up.
Yes, and if we don't get to your question, just contact me offline. But yeah, and dead on, David. I have time for about three, so fire away.
Awesome. So first question is, how do you think about ensuring or maximizing adoption and usage? And they gave an example of, agency owners might buy the solution, but, how do you actually make sure that they use them?
Sure. So I'll expand the question from just agencies and agents to how do you ensure adoption of all AI? And I'll give you what is my ideal. And I already alluded to it earlier in even the conversation I had this morning. Implement AI that makes humans' life better. And I promise you, people will flock to it. And I also promise you, as we ended on, if we use how industries use IVR just to irritate people and connect, people will run away from it. So it's really those judicious choices about how do we use these technologies to get rid of mechanical work and let humans do the more human thing. Companies that invest in AI and think that way, I think will get rapid adoption. Those that are like, we're just going to slash staff and we're just going to blindly implement AI without thinking through the implications, I think it's going to be very hard to get successful solutions.
Yeah, no, definitely makes sense, that kind of balancing act. So, maybe building on that, there was another question, John, that came in about, the talent shortage, right? So, with regards to AI or agentic talent, last time I checked, Facebook, Databricks, Salesforce, they're, a bit more of a magnet to this talent than, choose a carrier name. So how do these companies in the industry handle the kind of tech shortage of agentic people that want to go into insurance?
Yeah, it's a very, very important topic. As an AI tech company at the moment, I probably shouldn't say this, the gods may strike me down, but at the moment, we've been able to get really, really talented people of fresh out of college all the way to very experienced in careers. And like I said, I hope I didn't just jinx something. However, it's not lost on us that many people that want to work for an AI tech company maybe would think twice or three times about working with a traditional carrier. So I'd say there's a couple of things there. One is don't be afraid of leveraging AI tech companies for the knowledge. You still will have the domain knowledge. You'll still be making the decisions on agency and what you are comfortable doing and not doing. But you may think essentially of the tech company as an extension of your company so that you don't have to go out and hire a whole bunch of data scientists and product managers and all these other talented people. But you're partnering with a company that you feel confident they're an extension of you and your values. So that's one thing. Number two, if you're like, no, we have to hire some data scientist, it can be a real challenge because for any company to say we're going to go build our own language model, small or large, or build our own core AI technologies, it's really difficult. And I would question in 2025 why any financial service institution would start from a blank piece of paper and start building. So again, I lean more towards partnership. If you insist we have to have some of these talent to oversee our partners, then I suggest they'll probably have to be managed more as scientists, as data people, and not as the traditional employee base. There'll have to be a little bit more latitude, perhaps around geography, location, work hours, support, training, all of those things for you to be able to retain. Because people throughout my career talk to me, oh, it's so difficult to hire people. I'm not really worried about hiring people. I'm worried about retaining the right people. That's the bigger challenge.
Yeah, well, maybe that's an offline discussion with you, John, about, what's the Lazarus secret? Because, I think if many insurers are following your model, then, we won't have a talent issue. And I like your points about, you can give people autonomy and latitude and flexibility over where they live, then, there'll be more options available. So final question, and then, we'll wrap up. So this is more on kind of the risk side of things, but given that agentic AI can, or in theory in the future, will adapt some of the workflows and prompts beyond what you give it, how do you make sure that tree that happens after you start it doesn't have bias, maintains compliance, and doesn't have, decision drift?
Yeah, so a couple things, and again, that simple visual I offered, and again, just follow up with me offline. One of the things you're going to see in that simple visual is humans. Humans do not go away. And then I have some visuals where I show agents proliferating through the economy, but humans don't go away. So I would say in any effective agentic solution, human in the loop has to be thought through up front. Autonomy of agents, what they can do and what they cannot do, will be absolutely critical. Sometimes I hear people start to think about agentic and articulate thoughts on agentic as if when we implement agentic, they'll just take over and we'll be just sitting there watching agents do to us whatever they want. That is utter madness in my view. We as leaders will be using these tools and we are accountable for overseeing all those very boring topics like authorization, authentication, agency, what we're comfortable with them doing and not doing, what we're comfortable with them as they learn things, changing or not changing a process or pattern. Part of the what I was discussing while you give 60, 80, 100 lines of instruction, it would look a lot like instructing a human employee. Do the following things, don't do the following things. Here's what you can do. Here's the order I want you to move within. And so we as humans cannot say, oh, the next wave of AI is coming upon us. Woe is us. All is lost. And we just sit here. Of course not. We need to think proactively about how do we use non-agentic and agentic AI to create value.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good insight, John, that, essentially you give the same instructions that you give a human. They can make mistakes too, but you got to set guardrails for them. And, it kind of harkens me back to that movie, I, Robot, where, they put into the robot, they called like the three laws safe. So if you really want to prevent model drift, you need to give directions that prevent model drift and, set the guardrails up from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like, do employees have job description? You bet. Do employees have oversight? You bet. Usually layers and layers of it are the guidelines. All of those things we can't just throw out the window in the world of AI. Rather, we need to leverage them. One tech leader opined recently that CIOs of the future will be like the HR directors of the future because they'll have to think about all the things we just talked about in controlling the agents.
Yeah. Great. Well, I appreciate you staying, John, and answering these questions. There were many questions that went unanswered, so I'll see if our team can capture those questions, and then, potentially we can round them up and give the panelists a chance to answer and get it back out to everyone. So I just want to thank you, John, again, and the Lazarus team for, sponsoring, co-hosting this. I'm very optimistic until I get that tap on the locker room to explain to them agentic AI to the, plumber or other friend there. I think we got a lot of room to grow. So thanks everyone for joining us, and look forward to seeing you at one of our next events.
Always a pleasure, David. Thank you so much.